Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. President Trump said the US will end sanctions on Turkey. This after Turkey says it will make a ceasefire in Syria permanent. Almost all US troops are set to leave Syria. House Republicans storm a secure facility in the Capitol, demanding to hear closed-door testimony. They say the House Democrats are controlling the narrative of the impeachment proceedings. Shell companies in real estate are becoming a target for state and federal lawmakers. The House of Representatives and New York State both passed bills to require disclosure in real estate. NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal defends free speech, standing behind a team manager under fire for comments on Hong Kong. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story. And sexual assault activists protesting outside NBC today, demanding the company take action against a culture that they say allows sexual abuse. The group also has a demand for the Democratic National Committee. President Trump says Turkey has promised it will make a 5-day ceasefire in Syria permanent. In response, he says he has ordered that economic sanctions on Turkey be lifted.
Trump said in remarks early Wednesday that he does believe the ceasefire will be permanent. The original 120-hour agreement required Kurdish forces formerly allied with the U.S. against the Islamic State group to move out of a roughly 20-mile zone on the Turkish border.
I've therefore instructed the Secretary of the Treasury to lift all sanctions imposed on October 14th in response to Turkey's original offensive moves against the Kurds in Syria's northeast border region.
He added that crippling sanctions and increased tariffs could be reimposed if Turkey fails to honor the deal, which includes the protection of religious and ethnic minorities. Trump also said that nearly all U.S. troops will be leaving Syria, but a small number will remain to safeguard the country's oil fields.
The nations in the region must ultimately take on the responsibility of helping Turkey and Syria police their border. We want other nations to get involved.
Russian forces have since begun joint patrols with Kurdish forces along the Turkish-Syrian border.
Several dozen House Republicans stormed a secure facility in the Capitol today. They wanted to hear closed-door testimony that House Democrats were holding as part of their impeachment investigation. NTD's Holly Kellum has the details.
House Republicans held a press conference before going down to the basement of the Capitol. Their 3 committees were hearing testimony from Laura Cooper, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia, Ukraine, and Eurasia.
We demand open proceedings. The American people deserve nothing less. Their representatives in Congress deserve nothing less.
Republicans have complained for weeks that Democrats' impeachment investigation is happening behind closed doors. They charge Democrats are controlling the narrative of the proceedings with selective leaks to the press. Brooks said they stood outside the room and chanted, "Let us in," till a staffer opened the door. The staffer tried to tell them they couldn't, but they entered anyway.
When we came into the room, evidently they must be talking about stuff they don't want us all to know, because Chairman Schiff did not give his opening statement. He was getting prepared to do that, and then he left the room.
He's talking about House Intel Chairman Adam Schiff, who was chairing the hearing. After Schiff left, the hearing ended. Schiff has reportedly threatened the Republicans, none of whom were on any of the 3 committees, with ethics violations. Some GOP members allegedly brought cell phones into the room, a violation of House rules. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy told Politico that some members have never been into the secure area before, implying they didn't know the rules. Holly Kellum, NTD News.
A federal judge today gave the State Department 30 days to hand over records on Ukraine. Some of the documents include communications between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and President Trump's personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani. The ruling comes after watchdog group American Oversight filed a Freedom of Information request. The government has said it doesn't yet know how many documents will be released. And Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg faced bipartisan hostile questions in a congressional hearing today. Lawmakers targeted the social media company's plans to launch its own cryptocurrency known as Libra.
Zuckerberg said he would not allow Facebook to move forward unless he got approval from all U.S. financial regulators. But members of the House Financial Services Committee were not convinced.
Different of these regulators focus on different areas, whether it's financial stability or fighting crimes and fraud and terrorism, but we're committed to getting all of the appropriate U.S. approvals.
Lawmakers from both parties and top regulators, including Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, have criticized Facebook's plan for Libra. They warn it could be used for illicit activities such as money laundering or drug trafficking. Zuckerberg is instead pushing an optimistic vision of Libra and what it could mean for people who don't have access to bank accounts. While the hearing zeroed in on the digital currency, the full range of Facebook's policies, conduct, and market dominance is attracting congressional attention.
The latest showdown over President Trump's tax returns unfolded in a federal appeals courtroom today. A 3-judge panel heard arguments from Trump's lawyers who were trying to block a subpoena from New York state prosecutors for his tax returns. His lawyers say the tax returns would distract from the president doing his job. The case has also become a battle over presidential immunity. Depending on the appeals court ruling, it could head to the Supreme Court. And anonymous shell companies are becoming a target for state and federal lawmakers. The House and New York State both recently passed bills that require disclosure of shell companies' real owners. NTD's Penny Jo has more on what motivates such bills and their implications.
No office and no employees. Shell companies, mostly limited liability companies or LLCs, are often registered to hide the identity of the real owners. But that privacy may not be enjoyed in New York's real estate anymore. A new law now requires the mysterious owner's information to be made public. The law was intended to crack down on those who use the practice to avoid enforcement on things like illegal conversion of buildings. But it has unintended consequences for New York's real estate market, and it has surprised industry insiders.
It could be a concern, and it could be a reason why somebody may not buy a place in New York.
A Wall Street Journal analysis found that 12% of all condos and 5% of all houses in the city are owned by LLCs. And for the luxury condo market, the rates are so much higher.
That's incredibly common.
Some owners use it to limit liabilities in lawsuits and protect their assets. For example, if someone is injured in an LLC-owned apartment, the maximum compensation they can get is the value of the apartment.
90% of those people, if they're being properly advised, are going to put it in an LLC or buy it in the name of an LLC.
And for privacy purposes, most people don't want others knowing the location and value of their properties.
And it's happened to me before as well with buyers where I've had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So sometimes brokers are required, and all the parties that are involved in the transaction are required to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Franco said it remains to be seen how they actually implement the law, because people really went to great lengths in this case.
And I've had clients that have used multi-layered LLCs so that somebody can't then go into the Department of Building website and see who the owner of the LLC is, because that owner of that LLC could be another LLC.
A 2015 New York Times report found that apart from celebrities and executives, while the owners in Manhattan also included people like a former Russian senator who was banned from entering Canada, a former Chinese official whose companies built consulates and embassies for the Chinese regime, and a Greek businessman with records of arrests. Federal lawmakers have always worried that the shell companies can be used for money laundering and other crimes. This week, U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill that requires shell companies to disclose owners' information to the government, though not the public. The White House commended the bipartisan measure, which will need a pass in the Senate and the president's signature to become law. Penny Jo, NTD News.
An advocacy group protesting outside of NBC today. Among other things, they want a new outside investigation into former Today Show host Matt Lauer.
The advocacy group Ultraviolet is calling on the Democratic National Committee to cancel its upcoming 2020 presidential debate on MSNBC. That is, until NBC launches an independent investigation and other measures to clean up what they call a toxic culture. Ultraviolet Executive Director Shauna Thomas speaking about what the ideal scenario would be.
And that they start really cleaning house and demonstrating that they take seriously the need to shift their culture and shift all the structures and systems, including things like harassment, putting harassment.
This comes amid the release of Ronan Farrow's new book, Catch and Kill. The book details a number of allegations of sexual harassment and abuse within the network that led to Lauer's firing in 2017. The protesters want executives at the company to be fired for what they call enabling abusers.
To be done. There's absolutely no consequences for these men. They should go to jail for what they've done, but NBC apparently doesn't care about.
The group is also calling for NBC to end non-disclosure agreements in employee contracts and implement sexual harassment training within the company to ensure the safety of all employees.
A new bill would punish British citizens going abroad to get transplants from organs that were forcibly removed. The bill was introduced into the UK Parliament today. NTD's Jane Werrell reports from London.
The question is that this bill be now read a first time, as many of that opinion will say content.
The bill's introduction to the UK Parliament follows a damning final judgment from a People's Tribunal earlier this year, which unanimously concluded that prisoners of conscience in China have been medically tested and had their organs forcibly removed on a substantial scale. The tribunal ruled that the main source of organs are practitioners of a peaceful meditation, Falun Gong, which has been suppressed in China for over 2 decades. They ruled that forced organ harvesting is still continuing in China today and called China a criminal state. Lord Hunt, a member of the House of Lords, introduced the bill on Wednesday that seeks to update rules around organ tourism in the UK. Legislation designed to deter people from participating in organ tourism has already been passed in other countries, such as Belgium, Norway, Italy, Taiwan, Spain and Israel.
People from other countries are paying lots of money to go to China and almost ordering an organ by order. It really is shocking. My bill is a bill designed to stop people from the UK doing that. We need international action, but individual countries can take their own individual actions in relation to their own citizens.
Now the bill has started its path through the British parliamentary system. While it might be difficult to pass in the next several months, especially due to Brexit, Lord Hunt says he is absolutely determined. The bill also ensures that cadavers, such as those shown in the Body Worlds exhibition, comply with UK consent laws. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
Up next, NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal defending free speech. He says he supports an NBA team manager under fire for Hong Kong comments. That and more when we return.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal defending the NBA team executive who showed support for Hong Kong protesters on the league's opening night. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on his reasoning and the international protests that made it into the games.
The Hall of Famer defended the general manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, for supporting the Hong Kong protests, saying on Tuesday that he has the right to speak up against injustice. After Morey spoke out, the NBA apologized to the Chinese regime, but its commissioner said they would not fire him under pressure from the Communist Party. And echoing Shaq's support for free speech, thousands of people entered stadiums in Los Angeles and Toronto with pro-HK t-shirts.
we stand with Hong Kong, we stand with freedom of speech, freedom of expression, because the Chinese influence had already gone into NBA, and we want to stop it.
Lee with the Torontonian Hong Kongers Action Group created a GoFundMe campaign for a Stand with Hong Kong t-shirt giveaway, which raised over $34,000. Outside the arena, more than 100 volunteers gave out 7,000 shirts to Raptors fans.
If you don't stand up for the rights of other people, whether they're in your country or not, I think it's only a matter of time before it starts spreading to somewhere more close to you, and then maybe it's too late.
It's ridiculous. Everybody should be free to be able to express themselves.
Inside, despite the camera operator's efforts to avoid the t-shirts, fans were seen on the Jumbotron. And in Los Angeles, Sun Lared, his pseudonym, prepared over 13,000 t-shirts to pass out before the game. He said it was wrong for LeBron James to call Mori misinformed for showing public support for Hong Kong.
I think it's wrong to say, oh, people should be careful what they say or be careful what they tweet, which is what he said, because that's exactly the kind of self-censorship that China successfully has inside their own country. You can't say anything bad about the country.
I put the RMB on LeBron's mouth because he doesn't promote freedom of speech. He would rather take the CCP communist money instead of allowing Daryl Morey and the rest of the world and him himself to say what he needs to do, and he should not self-censor.
So these protests did not start on Tuesday in New York City. For example, at the Brooklyn Nets game last Friday, NBA fans wore outfits in support of Hong Kong and Tibet. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
And university students in Hong Kong came out to support their principal, who issued a statement condemning police brutality and calling for an independent investigation. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more from Hong Kong.
A large banner was laid on the ground on campus at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, where students were able to sign it and thank the principal for standing up for them. The principal is facing criticism for his stance from pro-Beijing colleagues and authorities.
Because not many people would do that, and not many deans would put themselves in a position that is so politically dangerous for them, after all.
The central government in China is trying its best to suppress our freedom using every method that he can think of. So mostly for most of the Hong Kong citizens, we think that if we lose this so-called war, we'll lose our core values that we cherish, that like the freedom of speech, like democracy.
Students wrote messages of thanks.
He really faced some criticism from the communists and from some government people, thinking that, for example, the Leung Chun-ying really criticized him that he really stupid or really foolish to have this kind of announcement. But we were still standing with him because he's really protecting our own rights.
After 4 months of protests, citizens are still determined to have their voices heard.
I think this will be an ongoing fight against the regime, but it's not in the same form as before, because we're not really occupying any place, but I think the heart of the people are occupied already, so we'll see.
Really, the universal suffrage is promised to Hong Kong by the Communist Party, and I just really want them to fulfill that promise and don't suppress the opposite opinions in Hong Kong anymore.
After the banner was signed, students delivered it to the administration. Essentially, the characters on the banner translate to "the conscience will not be suppressed by the communist regime, and the voices of the people will not be silenced." Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News, Hong Kong.
Up next, firefighters say a vehicle fell from a parking garage, killing a man and woman inside. That and more when we return.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Firefighters say a vehicle has plunged from the 4th floor of a downtown Indianapolis parking garage, killing a man and woman inside.
The vehicle, which appeared to be an SUV, landed on its roof after falling from the Market Square Center garage Wednesday morning.
So, grabbed the fire extinguisher, went out, and handed it to a buddy of mine, and he put it out. The smoke, I mean, luckily there was nothing else going on.
It wasn't immediately clear how the vehicle fell from the garage. Indianapolis Fire Department Battalion Chief Rita Wraith said code enforcement was on its way to check for structural damage to the garage, which has been temporarily closed.
This year's Consumer Electronics Show in Paris showcased the latest e-bike and smart helmets.
The latest carbon fiber bike from high-end French maker Colline features GPS technology and communicates with the rider's smartphone.
We just use a smartphone and we put the destination on the smartphone, and then we can see navigation on the display.
Running on a battery that charges in under 2.5 hours, the e-bike can reach speeds of 16 to 28 miles per hour, depending on the model, and has a range of 50 to 62 miles on one battery charge. Priced at a little over $6,500, the e-bike is more expensive than most motor scooters and some motorbikes. Because it's such an expensive bike, Colline has implemented security measures by using GPS to track the bike's whereabouts in real time. Meanwhile, Gary Shapiro, president of the Consumer Technology Association, explains why he loves visiting France with the show.
Everything they do is very creative, plus they have a very highly skilled population.
One invention that caught his eye is Cosmo Connected's helmets. Integrating 96 LED lights, the helmet is connected via Bluetooth to the rider's phone, as well as remote control. The technology can also detect if the user has been involved in an accident and can warn up to 3 friends within 3 minutes by sending messages to their smartphones. It also sends them GPS coordinates of the incident.
So it can save your life because we know that in case of an accident, every minute matters.
The version for cyclists costs $78, while the motorcycle version costs $110. It launches in November.
Up next, researchers say that sleep deprivation causes junk food cravings. More on why that is when we return.
The lasting beauty of traditional oil painting. Realistic style. Brilliant. Moving. Expressive. 2019 NTD Television International Competition for Figure Painting in Oil. Guided by truthfulness, kindness, and beauty. We invite you to join us on our journey back to traditional art. Gold Prize Award of $10,000. For more detail, please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
This is extremely gutsy. The Chinese Communist Party is not known for taking criticism very well.
The police have blocked off the streets and been firing tear gas and beanbag rounds at the protesters, and they've made several arrests.
警方呢是一直进行了一些推进，并且呢是多次舉起黑旗和橙旗呢去發射了很多的催淚彈。
即係佢哋放出去打嗰時就嘭咁撞到個肚㗎，咁咧就我而家翻轉頭咧見到個咁嘅嘢，因為嗰個兵荒馬亂咧，我就。
That's the media liaison. They're telling us that we need to get out of here. They're telling the press to leave.
tear gas is getting pretty strong.
If you've never craved a late-night snack of carrots or apples, you're not alone. In fact, it's a normal biological response to reach for junk food when you're sleepy.
You may already know that getting a good night's sleep is essential for your metabolism to function normally. But did you know sleep, or lack thereof, can also dictate what types of food you may crave? Here's the science behind it. There are two hormones that control our urges to eat: leptin, which suppresses appetite, and ghrelin, which increases our hunger. Research published in the medical journal Psychoneuroendocrinology shows that sleep deprivation affects the balance of these two hormones, mainly spiking the one that makes you hungry. So why are you reaching for junk food instead of kale? That's thanks to the endocannabinoid system. They bind to the same receptors as the active ingredient in marijuana, which can trigger the munchies. And that system makes us crave fatty, starchy, and sugary foods. And according to a 2016 study, just like ghrelin, when we don't get enough sleep, that system goes into overdrive. Experts are still unclear why all this happens, but if you want to limit those late-night cookie cravings, it might help to get more rest.
NASA is doubling down on plans to get astronauts to Mars in the 2030s. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine made the comments at the International Astronautical Congress. He said the agency's goal is 2035. Bridenstine is also hoping to get us on the moon again by 2024. The agency claims speeding up the moon landing will make the Mars landing happen faster. Before they do that, though, they'll have to find ways to keep astronauts healthy and make sure they have enough food to explore the red planet. And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.